Hey babe, welcome to By the Hour, where we chat and reflect and keep your vibe in check. This month is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and for this episode, I wanted to speak about endometriosis and my experience with it. Now, the word of the day is resilience, and I chose this word because I feel like I've had to be resilient all my life. I've had to be resilient ever since I got my period, or maybe even before that. But in the context of endometriosis and periods, my experience has been very difficult, and I've had to be strong. I've had to advocate for myself, and I've had to be resilient. So that's why I chose the word today. So it's March and it's Endometriosis Awareness Month, and I really wanted to speak about my experience with endometriosis because I feel like it's not spoken about enough and it's not understood enough either. And even for me, I'm still learning, even though I have the condition. I don't know enough about it. There are things that I feel like I learn every day about endometriosis, and it just blows my mind that this is not common knowledge. And I want to change that. And that's why I want to use my platform to speak about this and to share my experience because it might help someone else. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've got my trusty phone as always. I have a few facts and a few stats that I would like to share this episode. And if you see me looking at my phone, if you're watching visually, it's because I'm looking at my notes. And I want to make sure that I give you guys the correct information and to give you guys facts, because as much as I want to talk about it, as much as I want to, advocate and speak about my own experience, it's important for me to share facts that can be backed up by science and research. So if you don't know what endometriosis is, it's basically a gynecological condition whereby cells similar to those in the lining of the womb, the uterus, grow in other parts of the body. These can be found in areas of the womb such as the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the lining of the pelvis. Now, last year when I was doing research about endometriosis, I found out that it can actually grow in different areas of your body, and I had no idea about this. So it can actually affect some of your organs such as the bladder and bowel, and it's rare, but it can actually be found in areas of like outside of the pelvis and in your chest. And I was like, how is that possible? And I've experienced heavy and painful periods all my life. And I only found out about endometriosis when I was at university because I had a friend who got diagnosed with it and she told me about it. And so that was the first time. And that was like 2016 or 2017. So almost 10 years now. And it's only taken me up until last year to find out that it can grow in different areas of your body. I never knew that. Now, if you're wondering, what kind of symptoms do you experience with endometriosis? Let me tell you. Of course, everyone's experience is different, but overall, the symptoms that you can experience are severe period pain, which stops you from doing your normal activities, heavy periods, whereby you may have to change your pad or tampon 1 to 2 hours, every 1 to 2 hours, I should say. And you may also bleed through your clothes. That is something that I know all too well. Also, you may experience pain when you go to the toilet. So with bowel movement, or when you pee. You also may experience pain during sex, which again is something that I've experienced all my life. Well, let me not say all my life. I mean, since I've been sexually active, I've always experienced pain. And that can be very difficult to deal with as a woman, and it can be very debilitating, and it can affect your relationships as well. So you can actually have these symptoms at any time in your menstrual cycle, and you can have pain in your lower tummy, in your back. Sometimes you can feel really tired and really fatigued. Like, that's something that I know all too well as well. I'm always exhausted because when you're in physical pain, you just don't have the strength to do anything. And so you just feel physically tired, right? Also, sometimes you can get pain in your chest, which can cause shortness of breath, or apparently some people cough up blood, which is really interesting. So endometriosis is definitely a very complex condition, let's just say. And like I said, everyone's experience is different, but I think the basics are heavy periods and pain, essentially. So I didn't know this, but there are actually 4 stages of endometriosis: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. I believe I was diagnosed with stage 3. I could be wrong. It's either stage 2 or stage 3. And that's basically the severity of your endometriosis and how much tissue is in your body, I guess. So when I was doing my research about endometriosis last year, I found out that, well, according to Endometriosis UK, the only definitive way to officially diagnose endometriosis is via laparoscopy. Now, a laparoscopy is a surgical procedure. It's keyhole surgery. And so with a laparoscopy, you can either get one to, try to diagnose endometriosis, or you can also get it to clear the tissue and, help your symptoms. And that's what I got last October. But when I saw this on Endometriosis UK last year, I was like, oh, is there no other way to get diagnosed? And on other websites, it would say you can get an MRI scan, or I can't remember what else, but I saw MRI scan. And that's what I got last year when I got diagnosed. So I got diagnosed with endometriosis in March of last year via MRI scan. So when I saw this on Endometriosis UK, it sort of made me feel like my diagnosis was not valid, even though I knew that I had endometriosis. I've always known that. Like, ever since I found out about endometriosis, I was like, I definitely have this condition. There's no doubt in my mind, right? So when I saw that, it made me feel like my diagnosis was not valid, and it just made me feel like shit, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know why that's the definitive way to diagnose it. I don't know if that's something that the NHS follows, possibly, but I don't think it's right personally, because, okay, let me start from the beginning, actually. Let's start from the beginning. So I got my period when I was about, I always forget, it's like 10, 11 or 12. So let's just say between the ages of 10 to 12 is when I got my period. And I remember prior to me getting my period, all my friends had got their periods before me. And it made me feel like I wasn't like mature enough, or I wasn't a woman yet. And that was so crazy to me, because I was like, I was a kid. Why was I thinking like that? Like, in hindsight, I'm just like, I wish I could go back in time and tell myself, like, it's okay. Like, you are a woman. Like, your period doesn't make you any less than. Obviously, I understand, like, puberty wise and what have you, but I just wish I could go back in time and give myself a hug and also say, girl, don't pray for this to come yet, because you're going to go through it. Like, so yeah, I felt like I wasn't a woman yet. I felt like I was behind or something like that. And it was really sad. But yeah, I got my period around that age. I want to say it was like 11. I think I got it in like 2009 or 10. So then I would have been 11 or 12. Either way, I got it around that age. So my period has always been heavy and painful from day one. I don't really remember, all of my symptoms like in the beginning, but I know that when I first got it, it was very heavy. I was sitting in my computer desk at home, and I got up and there was like, a puddle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I finally got my period, but why is there so much? Like, I had to go clean up, and it was like really scary. And I just remember getting cramps, and it was just so debilitating. Like, physically, I was in pain, and I didn't know what to do. And one thing about me that I can say that I was lucky to have an experience with my mum is that she was very open about periods and talking about her period. And, obviously when I got my period, I told my mum, and she was like, oh yeah, that's what happens. And I don't really remember the conversation exactly, but obviously I told my mum that it's very painful and it's like heavy, or, well, I didn't really understand the concept of a heavy period, but I was like, this is a lot of blood. And she told me, she was like, well, when I was young and when I was your age and when I had my period, mine was exactly the same. It was so debilitating. She told me that her grandmother, so my great-grandmother, would have to take her to the doctors to get some medication, or they tried like natural remedies to alleviate the pain, or to like lighten her flow because it was so heavy. And she said like she would have to like take time off of school, or like she would feel like physically sick and she would vomit, she would get headaches and everything. And obviously I don't think there was like any education about endometriosis. My mum is a Gambian woman who's almost 50. So back then, when she was my age, it was like the 70s, or no, not 70s, 80s or something like that. And imagine now we don't speak about endometriosis enough. Imagine back then. And in Gambia, in a country in West Africa, I don't think there was any concept of endometriosis, or even, I don't know, like things to do with that. Like, but anyways, so she tried everything under the sun to alleviate her symptoms and nothing worked. And she was like to me, this is just what women go through. Sometimes your periods can be painful. There was no cure for her. And she just told me, you just have to deal with it. And I was like, so did it get better for you? And she was like, yeah, when I had you. And I was like, hold on a minute. Are you telling me that I have to get pregnant and have a child, like give birth to a child, for my symptoms to get better? And she was like, that's not the case, but that's what happened for her. And she was like, she's heard many women, who have had, heavy and painful periods and then had children, say that their symptoms got better afterwards. And I was like, damn, like, I don't want that. I don't want that to be my story. I don't want that to be the reason why I have a child. Obviously, I was 11 or 12 at this point. I wasn't really thinking too far ahead like that, but like that was always something that was in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, so there's not really a cure, and the only thing that will alleviate my symptoms and these problems is when I have a child, and I'm probably not going to have one for about a decade from now. And that made me feel like shit again. It was like, what? So every month I'm going to experience this pain. Every month, like my flow is going to be incredibly heavy and painful, and there's nothing I can do about it. Really? So yeah, my mum was very open and very supportive, and she would always sort of like, reassure me that a lot of women go through this and it's not just like an individual experience for me, which, made me feel like I wasn't alone. But the issue is, within my friendship group, or all the girls that I knew, I was the only person, to my knowledge, I can't really remember because it was so long ago. I'm not that old, but it was a while ago. Within my friendship group, like my close circle of friends, I was the only one that had really painful and heavy periods. Everyone else had periods that lasted 3, maybe even 5 days. I, on the other hand, my periods would last a week, maybe 10 days, sometimes even 2 weeks. And like whenever I would tell my friends this, they're like, rah, my period only lasts 3 days. I was like, 3 days? You're so lucky. I've never had a period that has lasted 3 days. So I felt like I was the odd one out. I was like, even though apparently this is like a common thing amongst women and like young girls, I don't know anyone who can relate to me. Like, I'm the one who's always in pain. I'm always having to cancel on my friends. So like back then, obviously I grew up in the era where we would go out to play and we would knock for each other. So we'd go around each other's houses to see if, they want to play out in the park and what have you. And like, there were times where I would have to skip out on that because I was in pain. I would get headaches. I would feel nauseous. My flow was really heavy. Till this day, like my flow is slightly better after my laparoscopy, but when it is heavy, I don't go out. I have to plan my life according to my period, and that is hell. That's hell. No woman should have to go through that, but unfortunately, I'm still doing that at the age of 27, and I've been doing that ever since I was young. So every time my period would come, I wouldn't really go out. I wouldn't really do anything because I would always anticipate the extremely painful symptoms. Like, it would happen all the time. So I always knew, cool, when my period comes, I'm staying at home. I can't go out. I can't do anything, or I can't wear certain things. So as a kid, that was really hard because I feel like I missed out on a lot. And I also kind of felt like there wasn't much understanding back then as well. Or maybe I felt ashamed or vulnerable or something. There must have been something that I felt which made me not really speak about it that much. Or whenever, say, I was on my period and my friends would like invite me out, I would have to make an excuse because I didn't want to say, oh, I'm on my period, because I didn't think that they would understand. So I would say, oh, I'm not feeling well. And then I remember back then, because I did that a lot, like some of my friends were like, rah, like you're always sick. Like what's going on? Why are you always ill? It was my period. And I didn't know how to talk about it. And I think it's also because it was a taboo as well, even amongst girls. Like people wouldn't talk about their periods. I remember at school, I used to have like a little sanitary pouch where I'd keep my pads and like wipes and extra pants because I would leak sometimes. So I would bring it to school and like, you know, because my period was so heavy, I would have to change my pad like every 2 to 3 hours. So I would like keep getting up, you know, during the school day. And like I'd open my bag and I would like take the pouch and I would hide it like under my blazer because I didn't want anyone to know that I was on my period. And I remember one day I was in English. I will never forget this. There was a boy in my class in my sixth form, in my form group, sorry. And he was very rowdy. He was so annoying. Like he was just so irritating. And I remember I could feel that my pad was getting heavy. And so I got up and, you know, I took my pouch and I put it in my, under my blazer or arm, sorry. And I got up and the boy was like, are you on your periods? Oh, you're going to change your pad? I was like, why would you announce this to the whole class? No one said anything. But then my English teacher was like, that's inappropriate. Like, it's none of your business what she's doing. And I was just so grateful, but I felt embarrassed. And it was like, looking back, I'm just like, I wish that wasn't a thing. Like, why did I feel embarrassed? Like, why did I feel like I couldn't openly say, oh yeah, I am going to change my pad? Obviously it wasn't his business, but you know, it's this thing of just like, back then it was this whole taboo, like you don't speak about periods. Periods don't exist. People don't acknowledge them. And yeah, like I always dreaded going to school on my period because I would have to ask to go to the toilet often because I had such a heavy flow. If I didn't, I would have leaked. I don't think that ever happened. I think I might have like leaked through my pants, but it never like leaked through my skirt or anything or trousers, luckily. By the way, in this episode or on this podcast, I am going to be very transparent about things. Like I'm going to talk about leaking. I'm going to talk about poops. I'm going to talk about pain during sex. I'm going to talk about all these things because it's very important. Like people don't talk about it. They're not as open. Me, I don't care. I'm going to talk about it. So if it's not for you, if you're a bit squeamish, check out the next episode or the previous one maybe. But in this episode, I'm going to be fully transparent. So, excuse me. So yeah, I never leaked through my skirt, but I definitely had moments where I would go to the toilet, leak through my pants. And that's why I would bring extra pants with me because I always leaked. I remember like during the first couple of years of me having my period, I was at home and I was with my best friend at the time, and my mum used to have these fancy sofas, like, you know, those Italian sofas, the leather. She bought cream ones. And I remember like laying in the sofa. So I was like on the side. Sorry for people listening. I'm showing how I was like laying. So I was laying on the side and I think I might have changed my pad like maybe an hour or two before. And then I got up. Lo and behold, there was blood everywhere in the sofa, all over my trousers, even on my like pajama top. And I was embarrassed because my best friend was there, but obviously she's a girl, like she'll understand. Like she wasn't like, like what's that? But I was embarrassed because it was all over. And I think my pajamas at the time that I was wearing were like pink or something, like a light baby pink. Blood is obviously bright red. So imagine I was essentially drenched in blood, like the back of me, and the sofa was all covered in blood and I had to clean that up. And I think my mum might have been at work at the time or she was sleeping or something, but I had to clean it up quickly, swiftly before she saw that. Not that she would like shout at me for it, but like it was her fancy Italian sofas. So yeah, anyways, I always had experiences like that where I would leak and it was embarrassing and it was uncomfortable. Like I'm someone who really struggles with like sensory things. I might potentially be autistic, by the way. I've spoken about this on my TikTok. I am neurodivergent because I have ADHD and I was diagnosed with that. I'm waiting for my autism diagnosis, but I've always struggled with sensory things. Like I don't like wet clothes. So that, anytime I would leak and I could feel it, even wearing a pad, I hate it. But I opt for pads because I don't trust tampons. I just feel like because my flow is so heavy, I just don't trust that it will be able to hold it. Like obviously you're meant to change it regularly, but I'm a pad girly, always will be and always have been. So yeah, so I've always had, a heavy flow. And like when I was at secondary school, so like when I first started in year 7, I remember like every month that I got my period, I would get sent home. And I spoke about this in my endometriosis diagnosis video on TikTok, where I was always getting sent home because I was in so much pain. It's either my flow was really heavy, I was in pain and I had a headache, or my flow was really heavy and I was in pain. So sometimes I'd get the headache or sometimes I wouldn't. But every single month, it was heavy flow, pain, cramps galore, literally. And I would always have to ask to get sent home until one day one of the teachers was like, we can't keep sending you home because you're missing school. It's vital for you to be here for your education. Like you need to go to the doctor or something. So I don't really remember like my first doctor's appointment, but I do remember going to the doctor in, the early days of me getting my period and saying, I'm getting cramps, I'm in pain, my flow is really, really heavy, and I keep getting sent home from school because I just can't function. I literally could not function. It was so bad to the point where like I would like put my head down on the table, on the desk, because I couldn't focus. I just couldn't do anything, And so I explained all these symptoms and how it was like affecting me mentally as well. And I didn't get any help. It was like, oh, take some paracetamol, here's some cocodamol, here's some ibuprofen. Like I was always given these painkillers, but no one bothered to investigate it. I didn't know that I could get a scan. I didn't know that I could get a laparoscopy. I don't even know the minimum age that you can get a laparoscopy at. Like I didn't know about a laparoscopy until 2023. I had no idea about it. Well, I mean, I know about keyhole surgery, but I didn't know about it in terms of like diagnosing or like investigating endometriosis. I had no idea. So no one told me about these things when I was young. So it was always a case of me going to the GP every month saying, hey, my period is really bad. I'm being sent home from school. I'm in pain. It's affecting me mentally. I feel sick. Like sometimes I would literally feel nauseous. I couldn't eat, or like, I don't know what it is, but sometimes when I'm on my period, like my senses change. So like my taste changes or smell, or I remember there was a time, a couple years back now, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, my mum must have bought like chicken and chips from home. She must have brought it home, sorry. And I was eating the chips and I was like, ugh, why does it taste bitter? And my mum was eating and she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, it tastes bitter. Like, did you sprinkle like, I don't know if salt can go off, but I was like, did you sprinkle some expired salt or something? She was like, it tastes normal. I was like, Mum, you're messing with me. So then I ate the chicken and I was like, ugh, the chicken tastes weird. And she's like, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, I'm on my period. Maybe that's what it is. So then the next month came and the next couple of months, and I would always like experience this. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Maybe this has something to do with my period. I don't know. But I've always had weird symptoms. But anyways, yeah, the doctors never took me seriously. They would look at me as if I was crazy, as if I was exaggerating. And it was like, why would I exaggerate about this? Like, this is literally my experience and this is what I'm going through and I'm in pain. Why are you not doing anything about it? I would beg, I would plead for like medication or something to help me, and nothing did. So I went a couple of years with just like taking paracetamol, taking ibuprofen, trying things like cocodamol, which I didn't like because it made me feel weird. And I tried different things like natural remedies, or I don't know, I tried everything under the sun basically. And then fast forward to, I can't remember the year. I think it must have been, I want to say it was 2014. And I was put on Yasmin. Now, Yasmin is a contraceptive. It's the contraceptive pill. I think it's a combination one. It definitely wasn't a progesterone only, but basically, when you have these symptoms, GPs will just say, hey, take the pill, it will help you. So basically, hormones can like suppress all of these things. I don't know like the scientific terms. Like, if you're interested, please do search it up. But in a nutshell, when you go to the GP about like having these symptoms and like painful periods, heavy periods and what have you, 9 times out of this, I can't even speak because I'm just getting so frustrated because I just remember like my experience. But anyways, 9 times out of 10, they're going to make you walk away with contraception. They're going to make you walk away with the pill. This could be any pill because there's so many different pills that you could be put on. I was put on Yasmin. So I was on Yasmin for about, when did I stop taking it? I stopped taking it in 2017. So from 2014 to 2017, that's 3 years. So I was on it for 3 years. And I went to the GP, A, because I was getting all of these really, really difficult symptoms, and B, because I started getting acne. Now, I've always had good skin, apart from eczema, so I always struggled with eczema, but like in terms of like, say, teenage acne or breakouts and what have you, I didn't start getting acne until I was 16. And it wasn't even that bad. It was like 2 spots each month, and I'm assuming that was because of my period, but because I was so insecure and so self-conscious back then, I didn't want any spot or any mark on my face. So I went to the GP about it, and I remember it was a woman. And she was like, oh, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm going to put you on Yasmin, which will help with your skin and also your period symptoms. And I was like, great. I didn't know any better. I just wanted clear skin again. So I took it. So I don't really know how long it took for my body to adjust to Yasmin. Like I said, it was a very long time ago now. But after I started taking it, within a couple of weeks, or my first period or maybe second period, I noticed that things were better. I wasn't really getting cramps like that. And also my flow was lighter. And I was like, this is great. Cool. I'll stay on this for the rest of my life if I have to. Little did I know that it was going to impact my mental health and also make me gain weight. I didn't see it at the time, but I gained weight. I've always been slim. I've always had a slim build. And gradually, I just started gaining weight over those 3 years. I didn't realize. Up until 2017, I was oblivious to my weight gain, right? And so once I stopped taking Yasmin, my body just initially, so for like a couple of months, I didn't have any like withdrawal symptoms or weird symptoms. I was like, oh, this is great. Because the thing is, when you stop taking the pill, it's very likely that you'll get, those period symptoms again of like heavy flow, cramps, headaches, your skin might move mad. And none of that happened for a couple of months. And I was gassed. I was happy. I was like, yeah, I'm good. It's not going to happen to me. Hey, it happened. It started again, even worse. My skin broke out completely. My cramps were so bad. My flow was heavy again. I was experiencing everything that I had experienced prior, but 1,000 times worse, especially my skin. And it was awful. And like in terms of like whether my periods were regular or irregular, they always remained regular once I stopped taking the pill. That reminds me, I forgot to mention, I always had irregular periods prior to me starting Yasmin. So sometimes I wouldn't get a period for like 6 weeks, or I might get 2 periods in 1 month. Like it was always up and down. And it was just hell. It was hell. So then once I started taking Yasmin, it actually regulated it for me. So I started getting a regular period, thank God, because it was actually annoying. Because sometimes, it would just randomly come. Like I would always make a joke and I would say, my period is here, assalamu alaikum. Like it would literally just say to me, assalamu alaikum. Like, by the way, I was raised as a Muslim. So, anyways. So once I stopped taking Yasmin, everything came back and it got worse. I think my periods still remained regular, but they were heavy again, painful, acne, mood swings, all of that. And my mental health was really bad. So once I started taking Yasmin, I think it took me a while to realize that it was affecting my mental health. I didn't actually know up until maybe just before I decided to come off of it. Well, I didn't even decide, to be honest. I think I was like toying with the idea of like coming off of it. But the reason why I stopped taking it was because, so when you get put on this, you have to go for like, I think 6-month checkups or something, just to see where you're at, to weigh you, to see your BMI and all of that. So that final time, went to the doctor. I got weighed. She said, I'm taking you off this. She said, your weight has increased so much. And also with Yasmin, I think that's the pill where it's your risk of getting blood clots is high, like blood clots in your legs. And she was like, you're high risk for that. You need to come off of it. So that's why I came off it. And I was like, oh, it's a sign. Like, I've been thinking about it. Cool. Let me just do it. So I came off of it, and my mental health was just in such a bad place. Like, it already was. Like, my depression was bad. My anxiety shot through the roof. Like, I've always had anxiety ever since I was a kid. Like, my anxiety has always been pretty bad, but I didn't realize it. But being on the pill made it even worse. And like, I would panic. I would have panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Like, my hands were always clammy. Like, I always felt unsettled. And my mental health, my depression was just so bad. I had dark thoughts. I had thoughts of unaliving myself. I felt really insecure. I just didn't like myself. And I didn't realize that the pill had contributed to that. It wasn't the cause, because I had always struggled with my mental health, but it definitely made it worse. So once I stopped taking it, my mental health just went downhill. Anxiety was bad. Depression was awful. I just felt like I wasn't myself. Back then, I always said like it felt like there was a dark cloud over my head, and all because I just needed something to help my period symptoms. Anyways, so from that moment onwards, I sort of vowed to myself that I was never going to put myself on hormones ever again. I was never going to accept hormones as a form of treatment for these symptoms. And of course, at the time, I didn't know that I had endometriosis. I was just told that, oh, women get heavy and painful periods sometimes. Take this and it will make it better. And it didn't. So for years, I was back and forth with GPs, with doctors saying, hey, nothing's working. When I was on the pill, it affected my mental health. It was like a catch-22. It was either I firmed all the pain, the suffering, the trauma of having these symptoms and not taking any sort of hormonal pill or what have you, or I go on the pill again, like try something else, and it affects my mental health. It was like damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I decided to just deal with it. I was like, I'm not going to put myself through that again. I'm not going to take hormones because clearly my body doesn't like it. I'm not going to put it through something that it doesn't like. Because the thing is, once I stopped Yasmin, the GPs were like, oh, there's so many different options. There's so many different pills that you could take. Like, maybe it just wasn't the right one for you. And I was just like, fuck you guys. I don't want this. I've been telling you that I don't want any hormones. Why do you keep forcing it down my throat? Or they would try to offer me the Mirena coil, which is a hormonal coil. And they're like, oh, this is like, it's localized. So it just goes in and, it's less likely that you'll get these symptoms, but some people do. And I was just like, what if I am some people? What if I do get these symptoms? Like, I don't want it. And so because I was so against it, it's almost as if like they labeled me as like being difficult, or like I wasn't accepting the help that they were trying to give me. And it wasn't that. It was just, for me, it was just like, then surely there's more to this. Surely there's like another option than hormones, when I've clearly told you guys I don't want to be on any sort of pill. I don't want the coil. I don't want like an injection. I don't want any of that. I was like, surely there must be something. Again, no one wanted to help. So I went years dealing with all this trauma, because it was traumatizing, like not just for my body, but mentally. It was like, why do I have to deal with this? Why am I carrying this burden? Because these doctors don't care enough to investigate. They don't care enough to do something about this. It was like I was begging and pleading for someone to help me, and it was just so hard to deal with. So I had no choice but to deal with it. And so, like I said, I would go to the doctor to like, ask for support. And then at some point I just stopped. I just gave up, because I was like, well, it seems like I'm going to have to do what my mum said. When I'm ready to have a child, I'll have a child, and then all of these symptoms would go away. And that made me sad. That made me sad, because I didn't know when I was going to have a kid. I didn't want that to be the reason why I have a child, because I want to be free from this pain. That's not right. And it's wrong for healthcare professionals to even say that, because I had doctors tell me that. They're like, oh, your symptoms will probably go away once you give birth, once you have a child. So instead of you to investigate and find out the cause of this, or what this is, you're telling me that I should wait to have a child and then it will get better. Fuck you, honestly. God, it makes me so angry. I need to take a minute to breathe. Sorry guys, I needed to take a breather, because I was just remembering like what I had been through, and it was just making my blood boil, because I just felt helpless. I felt like no one was listening to me. I felt like no one cared. It's just like, it sort of felt like I didn't have anyone in my corner, like apart from my mum, obviously, because she understood it, but as in like healthcare professionals, doctors, what have you, like no one cared. And like I said, I did try for a couple of years to like go to the doctor to get some support, to get something, right? And then at some point I gave up. I was just like, you know what? Let me just take paracetamol. Let me take ibuprofen. It does nothing for me. But maybe, the placebo effect might work. Like maybe if I just take it and tell myself that will be okay, that, someday it will be okay. So for years, I just dealt with it. I just accepted it. And then I did have one scan. I think this was like 2019, or during the pandemic. It was like 2019 or 2020. I had a scan, an ultrasound scan, where they tried to have a look to see if there was anything. And the nurse was like, oh yeah, no, everything's all good. Like your ovaries are fine. Everything's fine. Like there's no cysts, there's no fibroids, there's nothing. Like you're all good. And I was just like, nah, man, like, nah, there's no way that I'm fine. Like, how can you not see anything? But then when I was doing my research last year, I found out that those scans don't pick up anything. Like, sure, sometimes they can see cysts, they can see fibroids and what have you, but like it won't pick up endometriosis. Like it won't pick up the tissue. So of course she didn't see anything. So to her, she was like, oh, everything's all good. But instead of those doctors to be like, okay, we can't see anything on this scan, let's refer you to get an MRI scan or even laparoscopy. No one thought that. They just thought, cool, the results are calm. Be on your merry way. So again, I begged and pleaded, and I was like, surely there is something that you guys can do. Like, I don't believe that there's nothing wrong. That's all that I heard. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. Just take paracetamol. Or even the looks that I was getting from doctors, like suck it up almost. And it was just like, what do I have to do for you lot to believe me? Even if I was exaggerating, I clearly wasn't exaggerating enough, because you guys don't care. You're not doing anything about it. What do I have to do for you to believe me? And sometimes I would cry. I would like feel so defeated. Like I would cry to my mum. Or like when I was experiencing the symptoms, I would cry. I would feel sick. I would cry to the point where I'd get a headache because nobody believed me. No one cared. And so I had that scan. Nothing came out of it. Cool. So I again felt defeated. And of course, the pandemic came around. So it was very difficult to get appointments and like, you know, the whole situation with hospitals and what have you. And I'm quite a squeamish person. So I didn't even want to go to the hospital to do these things. But, you know, I was still, it was always in the back of my mind because, I mean, I shouldn't say back of my mind. It was at the forefront of my mind because every month I had my period. Every month I had my period and I had my cramps. It was heavy. Of course, like I was always thinking about it. So even though I wasn't really fighting for myself as much, you know, after that first scan, even though I did sort of give up, I was like, nah, someday I need to do something about this. So again, I think it was 2023. So I had moved out of Hackney to a different area and I signed up to the GP and what have you. And I was still getting these really bad symptoms. And also, I was in a relationship and anytime I had sex, it was painful. And even prior to my ex, like anytime I had sex, it was painful. And I remember like when I had sex for the first time, of course, like that will be painful because it's for the first time. Your body is not used to this, right? But even after that, I was still experiencing pain. And I was like, is this normal? And I remember thinking, maybe sex is painful and like no one's saying it. Like, is everyone like hyping up sex? Because why are you lot saying, oh yeah, it feels good. But then for me, if it's fucking painful, I'm like, you lot lied to me. I was like, you lot lied to me. This act is not that great. You lot are chatting shit. Or are you pretending? And I genuinely thought that because every time I had sex, it was painful. And I didn't know that I have a retroverted uterus, which I didn't know about. And I found that out, I think in 2022. That wasn't long ago. And the reason why I found that out is because I think I was getting an examination I was getting a coil fitted. So I have a copper coil. Now, if you have endometriosis, it's not advised to have a copper coil. The reason why I got it is because I was in a relationship and I didn't want to be on hormones. Now, stupid me, I could have, you know, said to my partner, please, can we use a condom? Which he did say, to be honest. I'm not going to go into it, but it's just, when you're in a relationship, sometimes you just want to be free. And I was like, I want to be free, but I need something. So I got the copper coil. Probably not a good idea because the copper coil can actually make your periods heavier and painful. And if I have endometriosis already, that's not really a smart move. But stupid me was trying to... Anyways, that's not the point of this episode. So I got a copper coil fitted. So when the nurse was fitting it, she was having a look and she was like, oh, has anyone ever told you that you have a retroverted uterus? I was like, what does that mean? She was like, your uterus is basically facing the other way. It's backwards. It's facing towards your spine. I was like, what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? She was like, no, it's like some women have it. Like your uterus can be different shapes or can lean in certain ways. But she was like, that could explain why you have painful periods, or like it could explain why sex is painful for you. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the answer. My uterus is backwards. I was like, oh, is that it? I was like, okay. So that's when I found that out. But what was the point that I was trying to make before? Again, sorry, excuse me. ADHD brain. I literally have a Dory brain sometimes. I think I was just going through the timeline of events. But yeah, that's when I found out that I had a retroverted uterus. And so, yeah, things were really, really painful. Oh, yes, I was saying that I moved area. So I was going to that new GP and telling them about like my history and what have you. Obviously, they can see it, but like I was still experiencing pain. And I think also with the copper coil, it just made things harder. And so I would go to the GP and I said to them, look, I do have this coil. I'm aware that it's not the best form of contraception for me. However, this is what I've opted for. But prior to this, like, my periods have always been painful and heavy regardless. And that was really hard to navigate because some of the doctors and GPs tried to pin it on the copper coil. They're like, well, you've got this contraception or contraceptive, same thing. You've got this device in you that could actually make your symptoms worse. So it's probably that. I was like, nah, like, it's made it worse. Yes, but these existed before I got it inserted. So I really had to fight for my case. I had to really advocate for myself. And that was really, really irritating because they tried to make it seem like I purposely made the wrong choice. And yes, I chose it. And I was aware of that. And I verbally said that, but it's a thing where, like, it just felt like they wanted to do everything but investigate. And it pissed me off. But luckily, I got through somehow. And I was then referred to get an MRI scan. I remember having a call with the consultant. And I think initially he tried to offer me the Mirena coil again. He tried to offer me the pill, like different pills. I think he even tried to offer me, it's not Dianet, but like one of them. And I was like, I'm not taking this. I'm not taking it. Like, I refuse, literally. And I had this back and forth with him on the phone. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. And so I think at that time, I had done research about endometriosis because I thought about it again. And I was like, okay, I probably have this condition. And apparently the way to investigate or diagnose it is laparoscopy. Now, I didn't know enough about a laparoscopy, but I mentioned this to him. I was like, can you refer me to get a laparoscopy? I was just straightforward with it. I didn't know what it entailed. I was just like, it's surgery, but fuck it. I need to know. I said, can you refer me to get a laparoscopy? He said, cool, will do. So here's me thinking, I'm going to get my laparoscopy or surgery referral. And so I think a couple of weeks later, I got a letter saying, oh, you have an appointment for an MRI scan. I was like, this cunt, did I not ask you to refer me to get surgery? Instead, you've referred me to get an MRI. What's that going to do? I've already had a scan and nothing showed up. But I didn't really understand that, like, MRI scans are slightly different. So I was like, okay, whatever, let me just do it because I don't want them to think that I'm being difficult. So I went for my scan last March. Bearing in mind, I got my period and started experiencing these symptoms when I was 11 or 12 years old. I am now 27. So I've been experiencing all of this for 15 years, if even. 15 years. And it's only last year that someone thought, let her get an MRI scan. Cool, it wasn't a laparoscopy, but it took me 15 years for someone to do the right thing and actually refer me to get this investigated. Ridiculous. Anyways, got my MRI scan at Homerton Hospital because I'm from Hackney. I was born in Homerton. And because initially, like, my treatment or like this whole investigation started in Hackney, I just kept it there, even though I moved out of the borough. So went to Homerton to get my scan, went through the massive machine. I've had MRIs before when I was young, so I wasn't afraid. I just hate the fact that you have to stay still, but whatever. Got the scan, and even that, it took them 6 weeks to give me my results, and I was meant to get them within 2. I don't know if that's a Homerton thing. I don't know. My Hackney people, let me know, because I know Homerton, sometimes they can be, somehow. So I don't know if it was a Homerton thing or just NHS thing, but it really, really miffed me off. I was just like, you told me 2 weeks and it's been 6 weeks. What's going on? So I had to chase my GP for the results. They sent it to me via email, and it had all this like scientific jargon, health jargon that I didn't understand. And I was like, what does this mean? Like, can someone, like, I had to call the GP or one of the doctors to explain this to me. But in the letter, it said that they found endometriosis, like deep posterior or something. I don't know. But it confirmed that I had endometriosis. and also that I had an ovarian cyst on my left ovary. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And I think in the letter it did say that it's benign or something, or it wasn't a cause for concern. So I was like, oh, phew, thank God. So yeah. And then fast forward maybe a week later, I got a call from the consultant, or like someone, I don't know if it was my actual consultant, but it was like, she was part of the team of doctors that were handling my case. And she was like, okay, yes, it's confirmed that you have endometriosis. It's, like I said, I can't remember whether it's stage 2 or stage 3, one of them. She said that. She said, yes, you have a cyst on your left ovary. We want to schedule you in for a laparoscopy. And I was like, well, fucking finally, someone actually wants to do something about it. And I wasn't even scared. At this point, I have dealt with this for all of my life. I was like, just do it. I just want to get this over and done with. And I had that mentality. I didn't even think that it was going to solve anything. I had no faith and I had no hope. But I was like, let me just do it to say that I did it. So I did it. Or, well, I was referred. So she went through all the process with me. She was like, yep, it's keyhole surgery. It's not as invasive. Sometimes they can do up to 5 incisions, from like 1 to 5 incisions or what have you in your pelvic area, lower abdomen, what have you, in your belly button, which I did not like because I have a fear of belly buttons. I hate them so much. Ugh. But I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. This is my livelihood. This is my health. I have to do this. So she went through the whole procedure and the process, and I had to go through this whole, call where I had to talk about my health history, like my background and all of this, whatever medications I take, what I've experienced, all that jazz, just to make sure that I was, suitable for the surgery. So she told me that I would have to get a blood test done. I'd have to get weighed, have to get loads of different tests before they give me a date. So then I went to get a blood test, and then my test results came back and I was severely anemic, severely. They said, we're not going to operate on you until you get your iron levels where they're supposed to be. I said, oh, that makes sense. I'm constantly falling asleep in the sofa and feeling exhausted. Makes sense. But then also, the nurse who gave me my results also said to me, she was like, because you have endometriosis and you lose so much blood each month, that probably explains why you're anemic. I was like, rah. So endometriosis can make someone anemic as well. I said, wow, being a woman is something, isn't it? So I was put on iron tablets, which were awful. If any of you guys have taken iron tablets, the symptoms that you can get, like you get constipated, you get a black stool. It was just awful. So I opted to take this iron supplement. I forgot what it's called, but the liquid instead. But then also I found out that the doctor who prescribed it to me actually told me to take it wrong. I was taking too much. So my body wasn't actually storing it. But yeah, I managed to get it to where it needed to be. And then I was given a surgery date for October of last year. Finally. So yeah, I finally got my surgery date for my laparoscopy. And like I said, I went into this whole process just feeling so nonchalant. I was just like, I have no faith, because what I've been through for the past 15 years has been enough to make somebody not want to be here. I've had to fight. I've had to beg, plead my case to doctors for them to look at me as if I was mad, as if I was exaggerating. And at that point last year, I was just like, fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? It's not a very invasive surgery. The risk of death is very, very low. The risk of so many things is not that high. I was like, okay, might as well just do it, I have some stats for you guys actually before I go into my laparoscopy experience. But Globally, endometriosis affects roughly 10% of women of reproductive age, translating to approximately 190 million women and girls. 10% of women of reproductive age. Sorry, but that's insane. And it says there are a significant portion of people who are unaware of endometriosis, with 54% not knowing about the condition. 54%. Next stat. On average, it takes 8 years from the onset of symptoms to get a diagnosis of endometriosis in the UK. So that's on average. Mine took me 15 years. Now I have some statistics about Black women in the UK. In the UK, Black women face disparities in endometriosis diagnosis and care, with research suggesting that they are less likely to be diagnosed compared to white women and often experience delays in diagnosis and treatment. Studies indicate that Black women are less likely to receive an endometriosis diagnosis compared to white women. There are concerns that women from minority ethnic groups, including Black women, may face challenges in having their pain believed by clinicians. Did I not just say that I was begging and pleading and fighting for my case, advocating for myself, for doctors to look at me as if I was mad, for them to just fling paracetamol to me, to fling the contraceptive pill to me? It's very common. There is a lack of quality research on the prevalence and experiences of endometriosis in Black women. Reproductive conditions such as fibroids are 3 times more likely to occur in Black women than white women. So, that being said, that just confirms my story and so many other people's stories. The fact that there is not enough research when it comes to endometriosis and Black women. There are so many people on this planet who do not know about endometriosis. And that's sad. It's more than sad, it's heartbreaking. We are the nurturers and the carers of the world. Women are important to this earth, yet our health isn't important. And I was speaking to someone the other day, and we were talking about how the healthcare system is very, very misogynistic. Nobody cares about women's wellness. Nobody cares about women's health. And it shows in the fact that there is no cure for endometriosis. There is no support or lack of support. They've recently released some sort of pill to help with endometriosis. And that is like a combination of all of these hormones, again, which I understand because it does help certain people. I'm not saying that if you have endometriosis, you shouldn't go on some sort of hormonal medication. If that works for you, if that helps you, that's great. But for people like me, it's not really an option. And it shouldn't have taken this long for something like this to come out. Now, I don't know if that's going to help people. I don't know too much about it because the news only just came out a few days ago, and to be honest, I'm over it. I didn't even read the article. I watched a few TikToks on it, but I'm just over it. I'm over it. But our health is not taken seriously. And just by me stating those stats and facts, like, my mind is just numb when I think about it. So I finally got my surgery date for October of last year. Like I said, I went into it like not feeling anxious at all. I was just like, cool, surgery time, finally. I knew I had endometriosis already, so that was confirmed. It was just about getting the tissue out and getting rid of my ovarian cyst. Went in for the surgery and it was fine. I was okay, you know? So upon waking up, when I'm still under the influence of the drugs, one of the doctors who I wasn't too fond of, because she was a woman as well, which breaks my heart because she had no sympathy. She was so cold towards me and just so mean. Because I remember like I had like all of the doctors come in and like greet me before surgery. There was like about 4 or 5 of them surrounding me, and she was one of them. And they were just like going over my notes and records and whatever. And like prior to my surgery, again, they tried to convince me to change my copper coil for the Mirena, so for the hormone, I can never say this bloody word, sorry, for the hormonal coil. And I told them again, I said, I don't want it. And I was this close to saying yes. I almost did. But because I was getting surgery, they said to me, okay, cool, we're going to have to take your copper coil out, but we'll replace it. However, we don't know if we actually have any more in this hospital. I said, I said, please, I need that back. Anyways, so when they were standing there and like telling me all this stuff, she was like, the main consultant, he was really, really lovely. And he was like, oh, like, what are your symptoms like now and everything? And I was telling him. Then she interjects and she's like, it's probably because of your copper coil. I said, I'm just about to go through surgery to help my condition. And you're still telling me that it's because of my coil. I was just like, okay, cool, whatever. So I wasn't happy. Anyways, went through surgery. Everything was good. Like I felt all right, but I was waking up still under the influence. The same doctor comes to me with her, book of things and pictures of, my insides and all the information. And obviously I was not in a good place. Like anything that she would have told me, I wouldn't have really registered it. So she's come to me and she's opened the book in front of me and she's like, yes, we've seen the endometriosis. There was a lot of endometriosis. She told me that I think uterus was like pulled back. So it was stuck. I said, oh my gosh, like everything was pulled back apparently. My fallopian tubes were pulled back, my uterus. And then they said they drained my ovarian cyst. Now, the killer for me, what she told me, which I felt like was just so inappropriate, or the timing was just not appropriate. She goes, oh, we also found out that your left fallopian tube is damaged. And she was like, it probably has been damaged for a while. Now, imagine waking up from surgery, you're still under the influence and you don't know much about this stuff. So I didn't know much about, fallopian tubes in terms of like, do you need both of them? Like I've heard stories and I've got a couple of friends who have had like situations with their fallopian tubes and stuff. But I was under the impression that you need both to conceive, right? Again, there's not enough information out there. And I'm 27 now. I was kind of beating myself up because I was like, I should know this stuff. But again, the world doesn't care about women's health, right? So the information is not really out there. So she told me this and I just felt something in my chest just twist. I was panicking. Like, again, I think because I was like still under the influence of the drugs and whatever. I started overthinking. And then because she went through it so quickly and then she fucked off, I didn't have time to ask questions. Even if I was like fully myself and like fully awake and sober, I say sober, but fully awake, I don't even know if I would have been able to ask the questions because I was just so speechless. So when she told me this, I was overthinking. I was in my head. And so they took me back to the room and my mum wasn't there yet. So like visitors are not allowed to stay. So I was literally just sat there in a cold room on my own. I didn't have a bed, by the way. Once they took me off the bed and they brought me back to the room, I just sat in the chair. So I was sat there thinking about what she had just told me. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to have children. I'm fucked. I felt so sad. And the doctors weren't there for me to ask them questions. So I went, I think I went home that day not really understanding, like not knowing the full context. So I was sat there and I waited for my mum to come and I told my mum all of this stuff. And just before she came, I was like, I got my phone back and I was just like researching fallopian tube damage. Can it be reversed? Like, can you conceive? And like, yeah, on Google, it said, yes, like you can still conceive with just one tube. And I was like, okay, great, perfect. But then I started thinking, I was like, if one's damaged, maybe the other one will get damaged. Like, what if I lose the other one? So I just started panicking. And I was like, why would she tell me this upon me waking up from surgery? Why didn't they just wait? And it really upset me. It really, really upset me. And it affected me mentally for a couple of weeks after that. So yeah, my surgery was okay. They confirmed everything, like I said, drained my ovarian cyst. I was told that sometimes surgery helps for a little while, but then the tissue can grow back, so your endometriosis can come back. But I would have regular checkups to assess my symptoms and my condition. And so I had 6 weeks of work. Sometimes you may even just need 2 weeks. Like after like 3 weeks, I was okay physically, but like mentally, I was just like sort of going through it after what she had told me, or just my whole experience with her in particular. Like all the other doctors were fine. Like they were so nice and so lovely, but she just dampened that. And it broke my heart that it came from a woman as well. Because the rest of the doctors, there was 2 female doctors and 3 male doctors. Why is it that everyone else was nice, but you were being a cunt? So that really affected me, and the whole fallopian tube thing. And I remember when me and my mum dropped me home. I think it was the day after, I broke down in tears. Like I was literally in my bed. So I bought this pillow, and like, you know, after your surgery, like you can't really sleep properly. So I was like propped up and I was just crying. And my mum came into the room because she was going to ask me if I wanted something to eat. And then she's like, oh, like, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? And I was like, what if I'm not able to have children? What if the other one gets damaged? And my mum, bless her heart, like she's not the most maternal or affectionate person, but she tried to like reassure me. She was like, Awa, look at me. I had you when I was young. You were an only child for 13 years, and then your brother and sister came along. I didn't think I was going to have children. She was like, I was pretty content with just you and I. And then lo and behold, your siblings came along. Like anything is possible. Like you never know. And so that made me feel a bit better. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's true. Like maybe I'll be fine, you know? But it was just frustrating that I couldn't ask the questions that I wanted to ask. So yeah, recovery was okay. Like for the first couple of weeks, you can't do anything. You can't pick up anything heavy. You can't bend. You can't shower for a couple of days or however long. I think for me, I couldn't shower for a week. Was it a week? It was maybe a couple of days to a week, because you can't get your dressings wet, or once you remove them and like the initial, what am I saying? The incision, is like closed up initially, then you can take a shower. But I think I could shower like after a couple of days or something like that anyways, which gave me the ick. I get so icked out by things like that. Like I have to shower. So the fact that I couldn't, it made me feel ill. But I did, you know, a normal shower where like, not normal shower, sorry. Adapted shower. I don't know what to call it, but like obviously I didn't get water on my incisions or whatever. I had to sort of like stand over the bath. I can't even remember how I did it. I just had to like scrub the top of me and then use the shower head to like, you know, rinse myself. And then I would put my legs in the bathtub and like scrub. Like I was like, cool, I can't shower, but I'm going to scrub my body somehow. So I had to find a way to do it, and I did. Because when you get surgery, it's very important for you to not wet your incisions. Otherwise you can get an infection, and I really did not want that. So yeah, I had to do that for a couple of days, and then I was able to shower normally, thank God. I got my dressings removed and everything was okay, apart from my left one. Like that one was still a bit temperamental, like it was still bleeding a bit. So I had to keep that on. But yeah, like they healed okay. I have scars, but I don't care. Like it doesn't bother me. Like it is what it is, you know. But yeah, since then, symptom wise, I would say I think my second period is when I noticed that things were better. So it wasn't as heavy and it wasn't as painful. It was still heavy than the average period or flow, and there was still a bit of pain, but it wasn't as bad. So I'm 5 months post-op now, almost 6, and it's very hard to say whether like it's like really helped. It's helped to a degree, I won't lie. Like my periods aren't as long. So prior to my laparoscopy, like sometimes my periods would last 10 days, maybe even 12. My last period was 5 days, thank God. It's been a minute since I've had a 5-day period, but I still had cramps. And one thing about me, I get cramps throughout my whole cycle, apart from 1 week. There's 1 week where I'm good. Even right now, I've got cramps because my period's coming. So it's not as bad, but it's a work in progress. I think it's probably going to take some time. Like for some people, apparently it can take up to a year. It can take longer. For some people, their symptoms are better after a month. It all depends on you. But for me, I've seen a bit of a difference, but it's not that great. But it's good enough for now, if that makes sense. But yeah, my symptoms have been so bad. Like even in the workplace, oh God, like I would have to take time off of work. I would, when I got jobs which were hybrid, so like I could work from home for 2 days, go into the office 3 days. Even going into the office was so hard. Like it was so debilitating because I was always in pain and I was so afraid that I would leak on the chair, and I just felt really uncomfortable. I hate going out when I'm on my period because it's so unpredictable. And I've had managers who were understanding and I've had some who weren't. I remember like a few years ago, I had a job at a jewelry shop, which was all female, right? My manager I thought was cool, but there was a time where I had to take the day off because my period was so bad. It was heavy and it was painful. And so I called in sick. And then apparently a couple other people called in sick that day. And there was only, I think, 1 or 2 girls and they were struggling. My manager, I don't know if she called me or she messaged me. I think she messaged me. She said, "Can you take paracetamol and go into the store?" I said, "Excuse me?" Coming from a woman as well, like, cool, I understand not all women have endometriosis or have heavy and painful periods, but like, would you not be more understanding to your own kind? She told me to go and get paracetamol and go into the store to support the girls because they were struggling. I said no. I was not going to do that. So, I've had managers who didn't understand or who didn't care, And it's so funny because it seems like the managers who did care or understand were male. So in 2 jobs ago, my manager was so understanding. He was so kind. He would say, "Awa, if you're in pain, don't come into the office today. Stay home. You can work from home. It's cool." Like he was so understanding. So I don't know if it was a case of like, was he understanding or was it because he's a man and he doesn't get it and he doesn't want to tread on my toes? So he was like, "Okay, cool, stay home." You stay home. I don't want problems. I don't know. But it's always disappointing when it's the women who aren't understanding or who are pricks towards you, which really breaks my heart because we should, come together. But I digress. So yeah, symptom-wise, currently, it's a bit better. I would say I've seen my intuition. I'm just thinking, and I heard 20%, so I'd say 20% better, which is better than nothing. Do you get it? So I'm not gonna complain, right? But yeah, so that's my experience. That's my story when it comes to heavy periods, painful periods, endometriosis. Before I wrap this up, I did want to actually touch on the subject of sex. I did say it briefly, but like I said, sex was painful for me. It was very, very painful. Mostly, again, I'm going to be transparent, so I hope my family's not listening. Please, family, friends, lock off from here, please. But it's deeper penetration, which was extremely excruciating. Like, there's been times where I've had to take paracetamol afterwards because it's that painful. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Anyone who's experienced it will get it, but it feels For me, my endometriosis feels like someone is sawing me in half. Imagine just, taking a saw to your uterus, your intestines, your bowels, just sawing you in half. That's what it feels like. And then they just set it on fire. So that's what it feels like for me. So sex is painful. Sometimes when I go to the toilet, like when I do a shit, period shits, oh Lord, God in heaven, or cramps in your asshole. Literally. So this is endometriosis for you. Like, it's so debilitating. And like I said, I'm going to be transparent. I'll make a joke out of it, but this is the reality for me. Sex was painful to the point where there were moments where I was like, what's wrong with me? My body's failing me. I'm like, as a woman, it just felt really shit. I was like, my body's not doing what it's meant to do. Like, it's making me feel like I'm not good enough. But luckily, my last partner was very understanding. He never made me feel like shit because of it. Like, he would take it easy. Like, he would, get me water, get me paracetamol and all of that. So luckily he was understanding. I have had a partner in the past who, I'm rolling my eyes for anyone listening. Again, I'm going to be transparent here. Like, it was painful. And like, sometimes I would like sort of like squirm and whatever. And it was clear that it was painful, but he would say, you can't take it, it's too big. I said, excuse me? It's painful because there is something going on with me. Like, there's something wrong. It's not you. Like, don't even flatter yourself. So, unfortunately, you can get men like that who, it boosts their ego because they think it's their piece. I'm just like, no, bro, I have endometriosis. Like, get a grip. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know that, but I knew something was wrong. But yeah, overall, I've been lucky that people have been understanding and been kind towards me and have taken it easy and never made me feel like I wasn't good enough. It was just me. I was just getting in my head because I was just like, why does this hurt every single time? Well, okay, let me not say every single time because again, like, I'd have to adjust myself. I'd have to do different positions that weren't as painful, or my partner would have to take it easy because obviously if you go rough or go too deep, it's quite painful. So yeah, it wasn't painful all the time, but there would be moments where like there might be a certain position that was really painful for me. So as a whole, sex was painful. And that's what I would say. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because that's something that people don't speak about enough. And I really want to be open. And as I was, God. But it's important. But yeah, that's my experience and that's my story when it comes to endometriosis and all of that. And as a Black woman as well, they don't listen to us. And I don't know what it will take. Am I supposed to move mad for you to take me seriously? And there's been countless stories out there of Black women not being taken seriously when it comes to these things, even pregnancy, when they're experiencing symptoms. I will never forget Melissa Wardrobe's story. I won't go into it because I remember I watched the whole thing and I remember her saying that like that was the last time that she would speak about it and she doesn't really want it to be a thing. So I want to respect that. But it's stories like that which break my heart and which are so scary. We shouldn't have to go through that. Why do I have to beg you to listen to me? Because of the color of my skin and my gender. And I pray that it changes one day. And I know that it will because more of us are starting to speak about it. And that's why it's important for me to do this. So I just wanted to share my story because it is Endometriosis Awareness Month. And I mean, we should bring awareness to this every month, every single day. So I'm going to make an effort to do so. And I need to bring back my Endo Sisters platform as well. I'm planning on doing that because it's very important. And like I said, I want to get a few guests on here as well, people who have endometriosis or any other conditions that affect them and just speak about it candidly. It's important for us to have a safe space and a platform to do so. And it's important for women who look like me to feel validated and to feel like they're not alone. So that's why I'm doing this. If I have to tell you about my sexcapades, I can never say that word. If I have to tell you about these things to be transparent so that you feel like you're not alone and you can understand that it's actually common, so be it. Obviously, I'm going to ask my friends and family, close your ears. Close your ears. Well, no, in fact, anyone can listen. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. There was a moment in time where I was, but shame only gatekeeps. And I'm not a gatekeeper. So I'm going to share my story and I'm going to be transparent and be open. That's the essence of this podcast. So before we wrap up, as I like to do each week and each episode, I want to give a glow tip of the week. So this week's glow tip of the week is listen to your body. It is very important for you to understand your body. And that doesn't happen overnight. It may take some time. It took me a while to understand and listen to my body. But your body will give you signs, whether it's pain, whether it's mentally, whether it's like energetically from someone or something, your body will tell you. We are divine beings. That's what I believe. We are given the gift of intuition and feeling. So if your body is telling you something is not right, please listen to it. Advocate for yourself. No matter how hard it is, you have to. Do not give up. Because I gave up a couple of times and maybe that cost me years. You know, maybe I would have got diagnosed earlier had I just kept pressing. Who knows? There's so many factors at play. But I just want to encourage you guys to fight for yourself and to listen to your body. Your body's never wrong. Your body will tell you when something is wrong. That's what it's designed to do. So that's the glow tip of the week. That's a wrap, babe. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was definitely different from the previous ones, but this is a safe space. This is a platform where we talk about anything and everything. And it's very important for me to highlight these topics and to speak about women's health. And what better way, than a podcast and, like I said, Endometriosis Awareness Month. It's very important. I do believe this episode will be coming out in April sometime, so it will be, past that. But hopefully, it's been informative. Hopefully you guys feel seen. If you guys have any similar stories or anything to do with women's health, please comment it down below. Let me know. Let's have a discussion. Well, that's if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're listening on audio, you can comment as well. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Let me know if you want me to go into more detail about anything. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. It's been a great episode. I'm really, really enjoying, recording these podcasts for you guys. Recording these episodes for you guys is not an episode without me getting tongue-tied or saying the wrong thing. Just bear that in mind, but that's just me. But anyways, like I said, that's a wrap, babe. So keep glowing, stay true, and always be unapologetically you. Bye, guys.